In the last episode, everything took a dramatic turn. Li Changgong was defeated by Zhao Lai. Not just pushed back, but completely overwhelmed. With no other choice left, he boarded a fighter jet and flew off into the frozen sky. But he wasn't escaping. He was heading straight to Zhang Yi, because in this apocalyptic world, there's only one person who might be able to save him. On Zhang Yi's team, there's a mutant doctor with unbelievable healing abilities. She doesn't just patch up wounds, she can regenerate severed body parts. That's how powerful she is. Now the real question is, will Zhang Yi choose to help Li Changgong, or will he leave him to face the consequences of his defeat? Let's find out. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. This news surprised all 5 regions. They had no idea that there was a hidden dragon in the northwest region. Everyone's tone was very stern. Meng Yuanjun said, "At this critical moment, the whole country is working together to overcome the difficulties. It is outrageous that some people are engaging in armed struggle within the country." Zhu Zheng also said, "This matter must be taken seriously. We cannot set a bad precedent." Other regional leaders also expressed their indignation. However, everyone only talked about it, and no one actually offered to lend troops to help Li Changgong reclaim the northwest region. After reading these remarks, Li Changgong felt a chill in his heart. At this point, he calmed down considerably and, upon reflection, realized that these guys were all driven by self-interest. Xiao Li's act of seizing the supreme command of the northwest region is no different from his actions back then. Moreover, there was no major chaos in the northwest region this time. Xiao Li is also an outstanding individual with remarkable abilities, having demonstrated exceptional skills on the battlefield. Some even believe that he is a better candidate to lead than the arrogant and domineering Li Changgong. Zhang Yi, however, ignored the unrest in the northwest region and simply told Li Changgong, "Come to Tianhai City." Tianhai City is still under reconstruction, and Zhang Yi has been preparing for the battle these past few days. However, he was also very curious about the unrest in the northwest region. The reason he agreed to let Li Changgong come was twofold. Firstly, treating his injuries was a minor matter. Secondly, he was indeed very eager to hear gossip. Li Changgong expressed his gratitude to Zhang Yi. "They say a friend in need is a friend indeed. But I never expected that you would be the first to help me in this situation. Just remember that you owe me a favor." That evening, Xiao Li also issued a notice to the heads of the 5 major regions. He condemned Li Changgong's misdeeds in the northwest region over the past 3 years and stated that he would strengthen cooperation with all regions after taking office. Zhang Yi glanced at it, smiled faintly, and didn't take it to heart. More than an hour later, the fighter jet hovered and landed in Tianhai City. Zhang Yi hosted him in a makeshift house. After getting off the plane, Li Changgong's face was deathly pale, one arm was missing, his hair was disabled, and his eye sockets were deeply sunken. Zhang Yi sighed and said to Li Changgong, "Ah, you've been ruined by wine and women, and you've become so haggard. From now on, you should give up alcohol." Thinking of his own absurd actions, Li Changgong could only sigh helplessly. "Let me heal your wounds first." If Li Changgong is not dead, then he can be cured. Epsilon-level mutants possess terrifyingly tenacious vitality. They can be revived as long as they have a breath left. Now that Zhou Qier has absorbed the spirit of the ritual, her medical skills have also been greatly improved. Although she is still some distance away from truly entering the realm of Epsilon, her medical skills are completely different from before. Li Changgong only suffered external injuries. Lung and limb regeneration was not an extremely difficult task, so the surgery was completed quickly. Zhang Yi was standing nearby when he suddenly received a communication request from Xiao Lai. Zhang Yi looked up at Li Changgong, who seemed to sense something and looked back at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi didn't try to avoid him and answered the call directly. "Hey Xiao Lai. Long time no see. Lord Chaos, it's been a long time. May I ask, is Li Changgong with you?" Zhang Yi glanced at Li Changgong and said calmly, "That's right, he's here with me." Xiao Lai said, "Could I ask you for a favor? Please don't interfere in the affairs of our northwest region. Wouldn't a regional commander, who is willing to be on good terms with you, be better than one who is always plotting against you?" Zhang Yi curled the corners of his lips. "I've never been interested in interfering in other people's affairs. As long as this doesn't affect me, You can do as you please." A complex expression appeared on Li Changgong's face. He was now desperately hoping to receive help from other regions, especially with Zhang Yi's help. But on what grounds does he ask for help? He and Zhang Yi didn't get along well, and Xiao Lai visibly breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you! If you ever need our help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask." Zhang Yi gave a brief reply and ended the call. A Zhou Kier walked over and said to Zhang Yi, "His injuries have been healed. After resting for a while, the wounds will be completely healed. However, it seems that his biggest injury is here." She pointed to her chest. Zhang Yi understood that she was implying something. A high-ranking figure, born into a position that ordinary people can never reach in their lifetime. Suddenly, he was ousted from power and lost almost everything. That feeling is definitely not pleasant, but Zhang Yi couldn't control it. He walked over to Li Changgong and said, "You can rest here until your injuries heal. Then you'll have to leave Tianhai City. I'm a neutral party and won't get involved in any power struggles. Therefore, I can't help you with anything else. You can try asking people in other regions for help." Li Changgong did try, but the attitude of people in other regions towards this matter was all bark and no bite. They spoke righteously, but in reality, no one mentioned borrowing troops. After all, the external crisis hasn't been resolved yet. Who would be willing to risk their troops and high-level mutants in a deadly battle against a whole region? Meng Yunjun bluntly told his subordinates, "As the supreme commander of a region, to have his power so easily taken away only proves that Li Changgong has long been unpopular." Li Changgong rested in Tianhai City for 3 whole days. During this time, he actively contacted various parties, including high-level officials from various regions and his former subordinates from the Northwest region. However, the various regions kept making excuses, and those old subordinates had already been won over by Xiao Lai and easily defected. It was only at this moment that Li Changgong realized that his prestige in the Northwest region was not as high as he had imagined. The only good news was that Xiao Lai listened to him and did not purge his confidants after the war, but only stripped them of their authority and imprisoned them. Li Changgong was bewildered. Now he is all alone, and returning to the Northwest region has become a distant dream. Zhang Yi was quite kind. He prepared some supplies and sent them over. "You should leave." They were ruthless in chasing him away. Tianhai City is under reconstruction and does not want outsiders to spy on it. Li Changgong nodded. "Chaos, thank you for helping me when I was in trouble." He lowered his head and gave a bitter laugh. "In the past, I always thought of myself as someone born into a military family, superior to others. To be honest, I was quite jealous of you because I found it unbearable that an ordinary person, a warehouse manager, could possess fame and strength surpassing mine." He spread his hands, "But now I am nothing." Zhang Yi crossed his arms and said calmly, "Leaving the Northwest region isn't necessarily all bad for you. At the very least, you're still a Black Chariot-level mutant. You can do well wherever you go. The glory of the past, the protection of your ancestors, and the power you wield as the commander of the Northwest region are not only your blessings, but also your burdens." Upon hearing these words, Li Changgong felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked up and stared blankly at Zhang Yi. In an instant, he understood. He had everything in the past, but none of it came from his own efforts. He possessed too much, but his foundation was too shallow and his character too flawed, which prevented him from grasping all that he had. He was an exceptionally talented individual who should have achieved great things in this world. It was because he coveted power and spent all his time thinking about how to protect his position as the supreme commander of the Northwest region, leaving him no time to improve himself. Li Changgong took a deep breath. "Chaos, thank you, I understand." His eyes brightened, and the previous confusion vanished. He already knew what he was going to do next. "When we meet again, I will definitely not look like this." Li Changgong stared at Zhang Yi, and Zhang Yi clearly sensed the change in him. He raised his right fist at Zhang Yi and said with a focused expression, "It's been a long time since we fought. Next time we meet, I'll catch up with you. I hope you'll give me another chance to challenge you then." Zhang Yi rubbed his temples and said with a wry smile, "You'd better spare me. Why does everyone want to challenge me now? It's true what they say. People are afraid of becoming famous, just like pigs are afraid of getting fat. If you become too famous, many people will want to defeat you in order to gain fame and power. Li Changgong smiled slightly and said again, "Thank you." Then he turned around and boarded the fighter jet with the supplies Zhang Yi had prepared for him. Next, he's going to gain experience. Zhao Lai could rise from the bottom ranks of a military officer, and Li Changgong, as a descendant of a military family, could do the same. When the time comes, once he has built up a powerful army, he will return to Cheng'an City and settle accounts with Zhao Lai. The fighter jets roared away into the distance, and Zhang Yi watched them leave with a calm smile. I just hope that when you come back, you won't be the stubborn person you used to be. As a result, shortly after Zhang Yi saw Li Changgong off, he saw the message sent by Luo Zhu on the high-level communication channel of Huaxu Kingdom. A mysterious underground race invaded the southwest region, but has been quelled by the brothers Luo Zhu and Zhu Gu. This is a new underground civilization unlike any seen before, but its form is similar to the creatures of the Nash Kingdom and the Uluwatu Empire. Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow. He certainly understood what this meant. When a civilization ends, some of its survivors will escape to places beyond the Earth's surface. However, a civilization certainly has more than one group of survivors. However, the fact that the brothers Luo Zhu and Zhu Gu defeated the two underground creatures so easily made Zhang Yi realize that they must have obeyed his words and established a new esoteric sect. Both of them are now in charge of the new tantric sect, one in the open and the other in the shadows, respectively in charge of religious affairs and administrative affairs in the southwest region. Thinking of what Cardinal Olaf of the Holy See had said to him a while ago, Zhang Yi made a video call to Luo Zhu. Zhang Yi had done a great favor for the southwest region, so Luo Zhu treated Zhang Yi with great respect. "Mr. Zhang, it's been a long time. I heard you returned from the great battle in Fremont. I wonder how you are doing." Zhang Yi laughed and said, "It's all right, I won't die. I've gained something. By the way, I just heard that the southwest region was attacked again. What happened? Tell me the details." Luo Zhu recounted the whole story without holding anything back. Two underground creatures, one with the strength of the Black Chariot and the other the White Bishop. You actually killed them both. Zhang Yi wasn't particularly curious about underground creatures. The Aihin clan explained everything clearly. Those guys were all humans from the past, and they were all a race that survived in the cracks. What intrigued him was the incredible speed at which Luo Zhu and the other two had improved their strength. Luo Zhu frankly stated, "It's the power of faith." Zhang Yi blinked, "But I remember that back in the underground demon kingdom, even when Zhu Guo used his faith power, he couldn't reach this level. What's going on?" Luo Zhu said, "Indeed, my current strength is only at the point level. But after being empowered by the power of faith, I will be able to reach the level of a bishop in one leap. If my brother Zhu Guo and I were to combine our powers, we could reach a level of around 100. Zhang Yi realized that this was probably the same situation as Marshal Saiyan in the country of Cage, so he inquired in detail. Luo Zhu was completely open with Zhang Yi, sharing everything he knew. In this world, it's not just our tantric sect that possesses the power of faith. For example, there's the Bharata sect in neighboring Bharata, Shintoism in Japan, Buddhism in Southeast Asia, and the Junzheng sect. They can probably all use this kind of supernatural ability." Zhang Yi asked, puzzled, "So there are tens of thousands of people in my Tianhai city who are all under my protection. Why can't I feel this power?" Luo Zhu smiled. "Mr. Zhang, faith and belief are not the same thing. The latter is driven by one's own needs, while the former is driven by genuine feelings." He pointed to his heart. "Only the most devout believers will have their prayers effective." Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi sighed and said, "No wonder there are so many monks and so many people burning incense and worshipping Buddha, but I have never seen many monks become high-level mutants. Nowadays, monks use their belongings to do business. They only know how to amass wealth. They drink alcohol and eat meat and have no faith whatsoever. Those who donate money for incense are mostly people who have committed too many crimes and feel uneasy. They think it's really about turning over a new leaf and becoming a Buddha, trying to make amends for themselves. But where are they really doing good deeds and accumulating merit? The Tantric tradition has been passed down for thousands of years, and the level of faith among its followers has reached a point that is incomprehensible to others. They were even willing to engage in self-mutilating ascetic practices in order to make offerings to the Buddha. The southwest region is close to Bharata, and many of the teachings of Tantric Buddhism are the same as those of the Bharata sect. The monks there are even more reckless in their ascetic practices. The beliefs of such people are extremely terrifying, and the combined power they possess is even greater. What about the Zhang cult? Zhang Yi felt a chill run down his spine when he thought of that ancient religion that had existed for who knows how long. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, temporarily setting aside such complex issues. I think I understand what's going on. The power of faith is the power of thought, which is essentially the power of etheric fragments within intelligent beings. Observation, thinking, and prayer are all forms of power. The more believers who possess strong spiritual power, the stronger the combined power becomes. The Aihin clan has now released 14.8 billion units of extremely pure spiritual energy, and the power that has escaped has caused a second global mutation. And the biggest beneficiaries are these religions. Zhang Yi looked at Luo Zhu in the picture, frowned slightly and hesitated. Seeing this, Luo Zhu asked, "Mr. Zhang, what's wrong? Have you encountered some trouble?" Zhang Yi smiled faintly. "I have a question, but I'm not sure if I should ask it. This kind of thing is very sensitive for people with supernatural abilities. If you feel it's inconvenient to answer, I won't blame you." Luo Zhu smiled and gestured. "Mr. Zhang, please speak freely." Zhang Yi then asked, "I'd like to know what are the weaknesses of this power." This is indeed a very presumptuous question. Zhang Yi was indeed considering whether to travel to the Kingdom of Cage to search for the Spear of Longinus. It would be good to be prepared in advance should he make a decision later. Luo Zhu smiled faintly, showing no sign of distress. "There's nothing offensive about this. All the heretics in the sect know about it." He explained it to Zhang Yi in detail. There are basically two weaknesses to this power. First, the foundation of faith has been destroyed. The power of faith must be concrete. Otherwise, believers cannot make vows from the heart. For example, temples and statues, or even simpler ones, trees, mountains, and rivers. The so-called gods are ethereal beings, never seen by anyone. Only by relying on these physical objects can the energy of ether be gathered. Zhang Yi understood this. When he dealt with the burial master, he burned down Sangjia Temple and corrupted his Buddhist heart. Secondly, the use of the power of faith has limitations. Since the power of faith, that is, the energy of ether, is gathered on physical objects, one cannot use its power too far away from it. Not just objects, but also land. Luo Zhu frankly stated, "To utilize the power of the believers, one must make a grand vow to protect the peace of a region. For example, I can only use this power when I am in the southwest region. Once I leave the land of the southwest region, all the power of faith will leave my body." At that moment, a flash of inspiration struck Zhang Yi. He finally figured out where General Sai's power came from in the Kingdom of Cage. In the territory of Cage, he was like a land god, able to draw upon the power of the earth and his believers. But when he left Kaji to attack the Roman Empire, he was immediately brought back to reality. The reasons why Olive came to find Zhang Yi were twofold. Firstly, there were indeed international political considerations. Secondly, Zhang Yi had no religious beliefs. The heretics of the Holy See, who are Catholics, may find their power somewhat limited after entering the Kingdom of Cage. This intelligence was crucial, and Zhang Yi now had a better understanding of the situation, so he thanked Luo Zhu. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the communication ended. Northwest region. Zhao Lai has taken over. He has become the new Supreme Commander. On his first day in office, he made one announcement. Li Boyuan, a former high-ranking official in Chang'an, was appointed Minister of the Interior, responsible for managing administrative affairs in the Northwest region. In addition, he also delegated power in a number of fields, including science and technology and agriculture. He delegates the task to professionals and doesn't interfere. He only oversees the progress of the work at each stage. Some people cheered his actions, believing that an enlightened ruler had arrived. Some people secretly scoffed, believing that Zhao Lai was just putting on a show. If you are truly so enlightened, you should relinquish the position of Supreme Commander or allow capable individuals to compete fairly. However, Zhao Lai didn't care about this at all. He knew that the ruler's approach could not win everyone's approval in a short time. Only by achieving results would the world naturally understand whether he was capable or not. Zhao Lai must keep the army firmly in his hands. It wasn't that he coveted power, but rather that at this critical time, with powerful enemies surrounding them, the Northwest region and even all of humanity were unsure when a great catastrophe might befall them. Only a powerful individual with exceptional abilities can bring the greatest stability. Therefore, he even said directly to those around him without any hesitation, "I know that many people think I am a dictator like Li Changgong because of my position, but I will end dictatorship with authoritarian means. The Northwest region still needs me. When peace truly arrives, I will find a beautiful place to spend my old age without anyone reminding me." Later, Zhao Lai proved this point with his actions. If Luo Yunfeng, who had shown him kindness, hadn't fallen to his death, he might be enjoying being a low-ranking military officer, marrying a virtuous wife, and having 2 lovely children. The tides of time propel people forward. History has chosen them. Almost a month has passed since the Chernobyl War ended. This past month has witnessed tremendous changes around the world. A large number of mutants began to appear, and mutated creatures also emerged in large numbers. The burst of 14.8 billion units of the Aihen race's spiritual energy brought about the second biological explosion on this planet in billions of years. First, it was back when the creator, Kagego, created this universe. Kagego's beloved Aihen clan returned to the ether, leaving behind a legacy that would shock the entire world and all races. The creatures on the Earth are the most direct beneficiaries. The portal disappeared a month ago, and humanity's initial worry has turned into some doubt. If the master of mechanical civilization, the 6-winged monarch Iduger, truly obtained the sacred relic of the Aihen race, why has it not appeared for so long? A godlike civilization is beyond the comprehension of ordinary civilizations. For civilizations that are incredibly powerful and even capable of eternal existence, time has no meaning. Instead of living in constant fear, we should take this opportunity to rapidly develop our civilization. The mechanical civilizations obtained from the battlefield, especially the remains of demon gods, were enough to significantly improve the technological level of various countries. On the Chernobyl wasteland, Loridic waited for Iduger's return. No matter how long it takes, he believes that after Iduger returns, he will be able to make the Kangyuan clan rise again in the world and become the next generation of angel race. Tianhai City was also rebuilt within this month. A fortress even larger than before, like a black bowl overturned on the ground. The fortress is divided into 3 layers, inner and outer. The core area was naturally the shelter where Zhang Yi and others lived. The second floor contains Deng's technology laboratory established by Deng Shentang, Li Jian's huge farm, Lu Dahai's aquaculture center, and Frog's centipede farm, among other institutions. The third layer is a purely armed fortress, composed of the latest type of metal material combined with barrier stones. Its thickness reaches an astonishing 20 meters. The middle section is empty, forming a circular passageway that allows soldiers to move quickly and engage in combat. The fortress was equipped with 8 Sky-Sea cannons, as well as 2 city defense snipers that only Zhang Yi could effectively use. In addition, the entire fortress is separated from the ground. The part that is stuck in the ground can extend its robotic arm and move at a speed of 10 kilometers per hour. However, this function is rarely used. Most of the time, Zhang Yi will simply put the fortress into another dimension and take it away. That morning, Zhang Yi sat at the top of the fortress, squinting as he gazed at the horizon. Today, the agreed-upon day has arrived. He and King Aurther will face off on the Isle of Sovereignty. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. Zhang Yi got up early. He ate until he was about 70% full and checked all his personal weapons. He is in his most perfect state now. Footsteps came from the stairs behind them, and Zhou Ke and Yang Xingxin came up and stood beside Zhang Yi. They didn't say much, but simply tossed their long hair against the southwest wind and watched the sunrise with him. Before long, Fatty Shu's excited voice came from downstairs. Wow, I've broken through. I've broken through. Fatty Shu scrambled up the stairs, his face jiggling with joy as he danced around excitedly. At that moment, Zhang Yi instinctively wanted to turn around and slap him, then ask him, "You damn beast, what breakthrough did you achieve?" However, now was not the time to make jokes, so he glanced back at Fatty Shu. "Oh, how are you feeling?" Fatty Shu said to Zhang Yi, "My current state is amazing. I feel," he looked down at his palm, clenching his fists twice, "that I've become one with this world of ice and snow." Zhang Yi chuckled teasingly. "You're probably the slowest one among us to break through. A single spirit of sacrifice is extremely precious. You'd better make good use of it." He looked at Zhou Ke as he spoke. "Look, even Ke broke through 3 days earlier than you." Fatty Shu lowered his head, somewhat embarrassed. But I tried my best too. I feel like I'm super strong right now. Bro, you have to believe me." Zhang Yi smiled faintly and didn't take the matter to heart. Zhou Ke smoothed her hair and smiled gently at Zhang Yi. "Although you said that this battle is only about honor and not about life and death, the help of those around you is also part of your strength. Let me transform your body." Zhang Yi smiled and nodded. "Okay, let's go." Fatty Shu came over to flatter him. "Big brother Lao, with your current strength, no one in the human world could possibly beat you, right? You're being too cautious." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes and reminded him, "Don't underestimate anyone. The Knights of the Round Table were able to clear the world of the underground civilization with a team of only a dozen people. No one can say for sure how strong they are. And remember, the world has changed. While you're getting stronger, others aren't idle either. Li Changgong is a prime example. Never underestimate anyone, otherwise it could cost you your life." Fatty Shu scratched his head and said sheepishly, "I understand, sir." Zhou Ke came up behind Zhang Yi and then stretched out her snow-white and soft hands. Her hands were so beautiful, white and slender, as if Michelangelo had sculpted them with a chisel without any flaws. Perhaps only her feet can rival her perfect hands. That was the benefit of her abilities, making her as flawless as white jade. According to Yang Xia, this is a skill that would make every woman in the world green with envy. She placed her soft, jade-like hands on Zhang Yi's temples, and a shimmering white light gathered in her palms, then flowed into Zhang Yi's body like a gentle stream. At this time, Britannia's warships had also reached the waters off Tianhai City, less than 100 nautical miles from Chongguang Island. King Aurther sat cross-legged on the deck, with his ancestral, magnificent two-handed sword beside him, its rubies and sapphires priceless even before the apocalypse. His eyes were closed, his breathing steady. The Knights of the Round Table, standing or leaning against the railing behind him, were also there to watch the battle and to provide protection. It was a gentleman's agreement that the duel between the two was only about honor, not about life and death. But no one dared to risk the life of the nation's strongest mutant. At 9 o'clock in the morning, King Aurther slowly opened his eyes because he had received a message from Zhang Yi. The battlefield will be a radius of 100 li, centered on Chongguang Island. No prior arrangements, including traps, supplies, etc., are allowed. At 10 o'clock, I will enter the battlefield from the north, and you will enter from the south. We will fight until one side admits defeat. We'll stop short of causing serious injury or death." King Aurther smiled and said, "That sounds fair. I have no objection, and I hope you will abide by these rules. Zhang Yi is a sniper, a fact that many people easily forget. He is very good at long-range sniping, so expanding the battlefield gives him room to demonstrate his abilities. Therefore, this rule is quite fair, and King Aurther naturally had no objections. It has a radius of 100 kilometers and a diameter of 200 kilometers. There wouldn't be many chances for Zhang Yi to make a move." This was King Arthur's first time fighting Zhang Yi in his full form, and he wanted to test just how strong his sniping ability was. After the two made their agreement, Merlin said from behind, "We will stand guard at the edge of the battlefield to prevent them from cheating. Notify us immediately if you discover anything is wrong." The members of the Knights of the Round Table behind him all wore proud expressions. Although there were only a dozen of them, they were capable of dominating the world. They are the only mutant force in the entire world to have independently cleared an entire underground civilization instance. The team is full of strong individuals. It's worth noting that the 6 people Zhang Yi encountered in the southwest region were ranked relatively low among the 12. The most powerful mutants at the time accompanied King Arthur and Merlin on their first journey to Atlantis. King Arthur smiled faintly. "The news of our duel has been spread through various channels. I believe Chaos would not do anything despicable." Merlin smiled and said, "Oh, is that so? But I've heard that his reputation has always been bad and he often does despicable things." King Arthur shook his head and said frankly, "In a life-or-death battle, strategy is also a part of strength, which is undeniable. In a gentleman's battle, I believe he would not resort to underhanded tactics." Merlin shrugged. "That would be best." Time passed second by second, and Zhang Yi led his men closer to the outer edge of the decisive battle area. They were aboard the Golden Peak, and Lu Karan advised Zhang Yi to bring the city defense sniper rifle. The 200-kilometer advantage is enough to give the opponent a hard time if you use a city defense sniper rifle. Zhang Yi smiled faintly and shook his head, rejecting the suggestion. "To be honest, I also want to see what level my skills really are." He clenched his fist, but a serious look flashed in his eyes. This battle was not a matter of life or death, so he had no burden. Since he had finally encountered such an opportunity, wouldn't it be a waste not to test his improved strength over this period? He also wanted to try and see just how far he had gone after being baptized by the spiritual ocean of the Yihen clan. Yang Xin said, "We will be here, and we will intervene on the battlefield as soon as we find that things are not going well." Zhang Yi raised his right hand, made a practiced gesture, lightly touched his eyebrows with 2 fingers, and waved to them. This is to tell them that they can rest assured. The 2 sides checked their watches and, as soon as the time came, immediately entered the battlefield. Zhang Yi raised his hand, and on his right hand was a black bracelet. As if it came to life, it extended countless black vines, which twisted and intertwined, eventually transforming into a huge black sniper rifle in Zhang Yi's hand. "Actually, I can snipe from 200 kilometers away without even needing a city defense sniper rifle. Zhang Yi doesn't need to aim. The predictive ability of the second hand of time has already reached 4 seconds. He knew where King Arthur would appear in 4 seconds. This enormous sniper rifle, despite its name, has become comparable in performance and strength to a super cannon after Lu Karan's modifications. With the added power of his supernatural abilities, its range and power are astonishing. Zhang Yi could destroy an aircraft carrier with a single shot. Zhang Yi had already loaded the nuclear bomb and raised his rifle, aiming it forward. After King Arthur entered the battlefield, he charged forward like a storm. His figure moved like a swimming dragon, advancing irregularly, stirring up towering waves on the surface of the sea. Zhang Yi pulled the trigger hard, and the Divine Refinement sniper rifle roared deafeningly. A black beam of light pierced through the space above the ocean, carrying a nuclear bomb straight into the distance. The attack came quickly, coming from 200 kilometers away, and King Arthur caught its trajectory in an instant. He nimbly dodged in midair. However, just as he dodged, the bullet that was originally dozens of meters away from him suddenly exploded. The power of the nuclear bomb spread out, and the seawater instantly boiled, with waves soaring into the sky. The force was so great that King Arthur was forced to retreat a great distance. His progress was suddenly halted, and his body froze in midair. Zhang Yi had already reloaded his second bullet and continued aiming. What terrifying sniper fire! This isn't ordinary bullets, it's practically missiles. A nuclear bomb? That's terrifying. King Arthur curled the corners of his lips, but immediately continued flying toward Zhang Yi in an arc. As the sound waves spread, the once undulating sea surface became as smooth as if a crumpled piece of white paper had been ironed flat. without a single ripple. Zhang Yi also noticed that his dimensional gate was beginning to fluctuate under this strange fluctuation. Then, like layers of bubbles surrounding Zhang Yi, they quickly dissipated. Zhang Yi's greatest asset was his spatial ability, the dimensional gate, which was directly dispelled by King Aurther. The sea beneath our feet became like a mirror, smooth and transparent, like a blue mirror. The scene was so beautiful it was like a dream. Zhang Yi only realized what had happened at this moment. He was stunned as he sensed the space around him. After the dimensional gate was destroyed, it could not be summoned again for a short time. Now, he felt like a naked baby, exposed to the enemy. King Aurther holds a conch shell horn, and the two gaze at each other across the distance, with the mirror-like sea below them. He smiled and raised the conch shell horn in his hand. I stole this from a fisherman in Atlantis. It can calm the seas and also restrict any spatial fluctuations. I've made ample preparations to deal with you. So Chaos, are you going to admit defeat now? Both sides, watching from a distance through special equipment, could clearly see this scene. Merlin narrowed his eyes. Luckily, I've fought Chaos before, so I know his abilities very well. Otherwise, he rubbed his neck, those insane defensive methods really wouldn't be enough to handle. Lancelot, sword in hand, sneered. The space attribute of the extraterrestrial has now been completely stripped away. Is there any need to continue this battle? In a duel between masters of extraordinary abilities, the greater the ability, the less room there is for carelessness. Any simple oversight can lead to defeat. Moreover, Zhang Yi's abilities have now been completely suppressed. On Zhang Yi's team's side, Fatty Shoe's face turned deathly pale. Holy crap, no way. How could he have something so weird? This is practically cheating. Yang Xingxing said calmly. No, making preparations in advance based on known intelligence is a strategy. Could it be that my brother lost? That can't be. Lu Karen clenched her fists, finding it hard to accept the reality before her. Uncle, you frowned. But judging from Zhang Yi's expression, he doesn't seem like he's going to lose. Upon hearing this, Lu Karen and the others looked at Zhang Yi's expression in the video. Although I was initially shocked, I quickly regained my composure. Of course, Yang Xinxin's face remained expressionless because she had enough confidence in Zhang Yi. They have no idea what happened to my brother, only she knew. What changes occurred in them after being baptized by 14.8 billion doses of the spirit essence of the Ahen clan. The shock on Zhang Yi's face lasted only a moment. He was amazed by the power of this special prop. As expected of King Aurther, you really have some skills. This is what makes it interesting. You haven't disappointed me, Zhang Yi said to King Aurther. King Aurther sensed something was amiss because Zhang Yi's demeanor was far too calm. He was so calm that it was unlike what one would expect from a mutant whose abilities had been broken. You, Zhang Yi raised the divine weapon in his hand. In just a moment, the divine refining also underwent an extremely strange change. Based on the Green Knight bows, this weapon has been continuously modified according to his special supernatural abilities, giving it immense potential. Black light rose from Shen Lian's body, and moments later, both Zhang Yi and Shen Lian underwent terrifying changes. The divine refinement transformed into a massive black battle blade over 2 meters long, with a broad blade and blood-red grooves on the edge. Almost seamlessly integrated with it was the jet black armor Zhang Yi was wearing. It is so dark that it does not reflect any light, thus appearing as dark as a black hole. The joints between the various sections are sharply defined, and the helmets on their heads have been transformed into something resembling those of a mad dog rider. Because Zhang Yi's appearance at this moment is almost identical to the 10 demon gods of the mechanical civilization, especially when King Aurther, who had entered the world through the portal, saw Zhang Yi's appearance and the black sword in his hand, he felt an extremely familiar feeling. For some reason, in his mind, the image of Zhang Yi and the king of mechanical civilization, the six-winged monarch Yitugar, gradually merged into one. His intuition was correct. This brand new suit of armor was created by directly modifying the mechanical parts of Yitugar. As for the brand new divine refinement sword in Zhang Yi's hand, it is also a fusion of the king's sword of Yitugar. This armor is on a completely different level from the previous hidden dragon armor, because the armor is equivalent to a completely new operating system. with the weapon system of mechanical civilization embedded inside. What does this mean? If you separate Zhang Yi and let the intelligent system control this armor in battle on its own, it's comparable to a bishop-level mutant. King Aurther stared at Zhang Yi in utter astonishment. You. Could it be that you have already cracked the technology of the 10 demon gods? They also obtained the remains of the demon god, but so far they haven't been able to figure out much about them. Zhang Yi has already applied it to his battle armor. Zhang Yi raised the black battle sword in his hand, pointing it directly at King Aurther. How about I try out my new gear? He pulled his right hand back, as if drawing a bow, gathering strength. Powerful void energy, or rather, antimatter energy drawn from the mirror image of the world, condensed on his blade like a tide. Despite the great distance, Zhang Yi slashed down fiercely with his sword. The sky and the ocean were like two smooth mirrors, and there was an extremely silent space between the two of them. This slash was like splashing ink, cutting through two worlds. The surging energy, in the form of the blade, suddenly divided heaven and earth. King Aurther snapped out of his daze and quickly raised the scabbard in his hand. The sword sheath of the king remains unstained by blood, an invisible barrier standing before King Aurther. Boom! The black blade of light swept down, impacting the invisible barrier. Its power was so great that King Aurther was forced to retreat continuously in midair. King Aurther frowned and suddenly began to plunge into the sea below. Do you want to dive into the sea? Or... King Aurther landed on the sea, his feet touching the surface, and miraculously, he did not fall into the water. The conch horn can suppress spatial fluctuations and keep the sea level calm and still, because it forms an inherent barrier in this area. The seawater is as solid as the earth. He was a knight who fought in the air, so his swordsmanship could not be used to its fullest potential. King Aurther looked up at the sky, his eyes filled with fierce fighting spirit. He was incredibly excited because Zhang Yi, after being stripped of his spatial abilities, actually chose to duel him like a knight using a sword. Zhang Yi curled the corners of his mouth. As you wish. His fighting style should also change. Zhang Yi, wielding the enormous divine refining demon blade, swooped down, slashing down with his sword. Upon seeing this, Uncle Yu looked worried. Close combat has always been Zhang Yi's weakness. Isn't doing this a bit dangerous? Upon hearing this, Zhou Kei smiled, closed her eyes, and said softly, Uncle Yu, what you're saying is already in the past. For 1 month after receiving the spirit of the ritual, Zhou Kei has been focusing on absorbing its energy and evolving her body. Zhang Yi originally expected that it would take her at least several months to evolve her life level, but to everyone's surprise, Zhou Kei completed it in less than a month. This is because, as a doctor, she has a very thorough understanding of the human body. After hearing the story of the Ihan tribe, she quickly understood the nature of intelligent beings and the truth of evolution. So much so that in her eyes, a person is no longer a whole, but an incredibly complex machine composed of various flesh, bones, and even cells and spiritual matter. Like a skilled butcher dissecting an ox, she saw the essence of the human body. This led her to a shortcut to evolution and the granting of a completely new ability, immortality. The essence of intelligent beings is spiritual matter, which is a fragment of ether. Their sole purpose in descending to this world is observation. Therefore, as long as the brain that determines ideology remains intact, the ability to observe will still exist. Then, the rest of the body can be repaired. This can be achieved through the cell's own division and differentiation. Zhou Kei has mastered this ability, and she can even shape her body according to her own wishes. If she wanted, she could even help someone create a body that includes everything except the brain. Therefore, the Zhang Yi before us is no longer the Zhang Yi of the past. Zhou Kei used her abilities to completely modify Zhang Yi's body, strengthening his cells. Zhang Yi's physical strength has now reached the limit that humans can achieve. In terms of strength, speed, and reaction time, no one on the entire planet can match it. Of course, compared to those enhanced monsters who use superpowers to improve themselves, they might not be that abnormal. However, his overall qualities are all perfect. In this situation, coupled with the brand new demon god armor, Zhang Yi was completely transformed. Weak in melee combat, I'm sorry, that's a long time ago. Now, his close combat ability is no less than that of a high-ranking demon god. Sure enough, a violent sound erupted from the battlefield. Zhang Yi's demonic blade clashed fiercely with King Aurther's sword, creating such a powerful impact that ripples spread across the mirror-like sea. A terrifying storm swept across the battlefield, and everyone outside the battlefield could feel its oppressive force. It was like two ancient demon gods were fighting. Zhang Yi had been learning martial arts from Liang Yue for 3 years, and only today could he truly unleash his full potential. As he activated his body, the power inherent in the demon god armor was unleashed, giving him the feeling that a single punch could smash a large hole in a mountain. King Aurther sensed something was wrong after just one contact with him. You actually possess such power. It's truly unimaginable what kind of extraordinary adventures you had in Chernobyl. After their exchange of blows, King Aurther and Zhang Yi quickly retreated, because this enormous force rebounded onto them. King Aurther stared intently at Zhang Yi, a seed of doubt already planted in his heart, because Zhang Yi today is far, far stronger than he was back then. Zhang Yi raised the knife in his hand. He glanced at his arm, which was covered by the demon god armor, and a feeling of extreme safety warmed his heart. Armaments from a mechanical civilization that is hundreds, even thousands of years ahead of humanity are truly useful. There's nothing I can do about it. What can I do when I have such an outstanding backyard team? Zhang Yi said with a smile. Looking back now, rescuing Yang Xinxin and Lu Karan from Tianqing Academy was definitely the best thing he ever did in his life. For a long time initially, the two were only responsible for devising strategies, repairing weapons, and building engineering equipment. They never directly participated in the main battles. However, as Zhang Yi grew stronger, she provided more help than Liang Yue and Uncle Yu. As expected, the support role becomes more important as the game progresses. King Aurther took a deep breath, his gaze sharpening instantly. Great. In that case, I won't have to worry about killing you. From now on, I will give it my all. He raised the king's sword above his head, and the white sun in the sky emitted a faint glow, which shone on the blade, causing it to suddenly burst into dazzling light. I, Arthur D. Pandoragon, issue this command by the authority of the king. The whole world shall submit to my sword. The space seemed to fall silent for a moment. Then an invisible wave swept across all directions at an extremely fast speed. Zhang Yi felt as if his body had been struck by an unstoppable force. In an instant, the supernatural powers within him weakened. Even though he had seen all of this through the second hand of time, he was powerless to stop it. The king's authority indiscriminately suppresses the power of all mutants, weakening their fighting ability. Interesting. Zhang Yi felt the power of the void. It was not as strong as before, but the weakening was limited, only about 10%. This is extremely deadly for other mutants. But for Zhang Yi, it wasn't a big problem. Because he was playing a prop-based game, the king's authority suppressed the mutants, not the armed ones. In Zhang Yi's left pupil, an ancient pendulum swayed slowly. He raised the enormous black demonic sword with both hands. Come on! He glided across the mirror-like, beautiful sea and chose to take the initiative. The body of King Aurther before my eyes became magical, with layers of images overlapping, like a slideshow. The second hand of time can predict everything that will happen within 4 seconds. In close combat, anticipating the opponent's moves allows you to seize the initiative. These after images represent the future that will change depending on his choices. Clang! The blade and sword clashed, followed by a continuous series of impacts. Both of them were so fast that they were difficult to see with the naked eye, and could go from the sea to the sky in an instant, and then fall again. This was Zhang Yi's first time engaging in close combat, and his experience and skills were not yet refined enough, putting him at a disadvantage. However, the second hand of time completely makes up for these disadvantages. The battle between the two was evenly matched for a time, with both possessing a wealth of information and a thorough understanding of each other's abilities. Therefore, the only way is to force the opponent to reveal a weakness through high-frequency battles. While the two were fighting, Their supernatural beings watched from the sidelines, but they soon lost track of what was happening. After all, in order not to disturb them, everyone was kept very far away from the battlefield, and the smart devices began to lose their presence. On the Britannian warship, Elizabeth, Lancelot, leaning against the railing, suddenly felt a little bored. He looked at Merlin ahead and said with a smile, "Waiting like this is quite boring. Why don't we find something to do?" Merlin turned his head and looked at Lancelot with a smile. "Oh? What are you planning to do now, Lord Lancelot?" Lancelot walked over, sword in hand, his eyes fierce. With the two bosses fighting so fiercely, we subordinates can't just stand by and watch, can we? He turned his head and looked into the distance. "I've heard that the Chaos Team is made up of some of the most outstanding people in the world. I really want to have a go at them." Upon hearing this, the other members of the Knights of the Round Table also turned to look. The Knights of the Round Table are a top-tier team of mutants, with several members possessing mutant abilities at the level of Epsilon. This stemmed from their enjoyment of Britannia's best resources. Of course, they were also hard-working enough, fighting in the north and south for 3 years, and even conquering the deep-sea wonderland of Atlantis. Lancelot suddenly spread his arms and urged the crowd. "We already suffered at their hands after the portal. Now, why don't we find an opportunity to get our revenge? What do you say?" Merlin and King Aurther were both eliminated by Zhang Yi. Merlin squinted, unable to see his eyes clearly or discern his emotions. He just smiled and said, "You guys really enjoy a lively atmosphere? It is indeed a good entertainment program." He stretched and yawned. "I just wonder what the people on the other side are thinking." He will not participate. If 2 bishop-level mutants from the Knights of the Round Table were to participate, it would be tantamount to using the entire Britannia against a team of mutants from the kingdom of Hoshu, which wouldn't sound good if word got out. Seeing that Merlin had no objections, Lancelot immediately said, "Let's contact the other side and see if they dare to accept the challenge." Lancelot had Yang Xinshin's contact information when he was in the underground demon kingdom in the southwest region, so he contacted Yang Xinshin directly. Yang Xinshin glanced at the communication request and said indifferently, "It seems they have some special ideas." Joker frowned slightly. "Could it be that they want to start a team battle? That would be very disadvantageous for us." Yang Xinshin said, "They're not that stupid. After all, Zhang Yi was carrying the Sky Sea Fortress. One should not have the intention to harm others, but one must be wary of others. If the Knights of the Round Table don't uphold martial ethics, Zhang Yi will show them what a super war machine truly is. Let's see what they're up to first." Yang Xinshin connected with Lancelot's communication. "It's been a long time, beautiful Miss Yang. You are as beautiful and charming as ever." Lancelot bowed respectfully and spoke in a very gentlemanly manner, but his face wore a smile that made people feel somewhat uncomfortable. "Is there something you need?" Yang Xinshin's voice was cold and devoid of any warmth. "It's like this," Lancelot said with a smile. "We think that since this is a duel between your Tianhai City team of mutants and the 2 bosses of our Round Table Knights, why don't we send a few of our mutants to have a friendly spar?" Upon hearing these words, Uncle Yu and the others couldn't help but look over. A fierce fighting spirit burned brightly in their eyes. Flower was held in Yang Xinshin's arms, and she opened her squinting eyes a crack. "Want to fight?" Lancelot spread his arms wide, his smile brimming with provocation. "What is your opinion, Your Excellency?" Of course, this is a purely friendly sparring session, absolutely without any personal grudges. The fight will only be a friendly exchange, and there will be no life-or-death duel. However, on the other hand, what if Miss Yang and your companions are unwilling to accept the challenge? He drew out the last syllable, his expression becoming even more arrogant, and raised his chin as he said, "We can understand that too. After all, the renowned reputation of our Knights of the Round Table is known to everyone in the world. Now that things have come to this point, who can listen to this?" Uncle Yu nearly ground his teeth to powder, and Fatty Shu clenched his fists, rolled up his sleeves, and said, "Damn it, this is going too far." Yang Xingqing, however, showed no expression whatsoever. "Oh? You want to spar?" Uncle Yu, who was standing nearby, couldn't hold back any longer and came over and said, "Miss Yang, please agree to his request. Let me go and see what these strange people from Western Europe are really capable of." Fatty Shu, while rolling up his sleeves, gritted his teeth and said, "That's right, we absolutely can't let others look down on us." Yang Xinxin said to Lancelot, "Wait a moment." She then immediately shut down the communication. Yang Xinxin turned around and faced the crowd. Zhou Care looked worried. "Why are they doing this? Is it just to put us in a better position?" Lu Karen rubbed her nose. "A person's reputation precedes them. In Chernobyl, we certainly made a name for ourselves. On the other hand, the Knights of the Round Table, who were previously praised as the world's #1 team of mutants, were eliminated by us one after another. I suppose they want to establish their authority by challenging us to a group battle." Uncle Yi raised his fist and said fiercely, "Let's fight them. With our current strength, we're not afraid of them." Zhang Yi's team currently consists of 6 individuals at the Epsilon level. The individuals present had all reached the realm of Epsilon. These matters are currently unknown to the outside world. If this gets out, it will definitely cause a huge uproar around the world. Yang Xinqin analyzed. Their purpose should be twofold. First, as you said, to establish their authority. But it is precisely here that the two bosses chose to engage in an off-field battle during the final showdown. Therefore, I believe that they are trying to interfere with the game through external factors. Even if both sides have agreed that only Brother Zhang Yi and King Aurther will participate in this battle, if one of their own extraordinary individuals is defeated outside the arena, it will inevitably affect the battle inside the arena. A deep, obsidian-like light flashed in her eyes. They are worried that King Aurther will be defeated. The group looked at each other and ultimately gave the decision to Yang Xinxin. "Miss Yang, it's up to you whether we should accept the challenge." "Uncle," you said very sincerely. After a moment's thought, Yang Xinxin said to the others, "We can roughly assess the strength of the Knights of the Round Table. There are 8 people I've had contact with, and whose strengths are fairly clear. King Aurther and Merlin are at the bishop level. So if we're going to fight, Merlin must be prevented from participating. Lancelot, Black Chariot level. More than a year has passed since our last battle, and his strength has improved tremendously. There are 6 more people we haven't contacted, but logically speaking, there must be some Epsilon-level mutants among them. They must have gained something from entering Atlantis. So," she said, her gaze sweeping over everyone present, "we can send out 3 mutants and demand that the other side send out 3 mutants in return for the battle. But for the sake of fairness, Merlin is not allowed to participate in the battle. Therefore, the difference in ability index between the 2 sides in the battle must not exceed 3,000 points." She held up 3 fingers. "Since the other party requested the duel, it's natural for us to propose the rules. So, what we need to determine is who will participate. The first one is Teacher Liang. The second one is Huahua." Without the slightest hesitation, Yang Xinqin confirmed the 2 candidates. After all, among the martial arts faction, they were the strongest fighters in the team besides Zhang Yi. Of course, if Lu Karen were to pilot a mecha, that would be a different story. However, it might be troublesome for her to participate in this kind of battle, since the opponent could also use this as an excuse to send Merlin into the fray. Uncle Yu and Fatty Shu both looked at Yang Xinxin nervously. The third one, Yang Xinxin glanced at Fatty Shu. "Uncle Yu, let's go on stage." As expected. Although Uncle Yu's superpower index did not exceed a certain point, he chose the path of mechanical ascension. His current body was created by modifying the body of a lower-level demon god. Compared to the original, there is naturally a significant gap, but it is still enough to face mutants of the Epsilon level. Uncle Yu nodded vigorously. "Leave it to me." But just then, a sudden, abrupt voice rang out from the side. "Wait a minute." Everyone looked over, and Fatty Shu silently raised his hand. "Actually, I'd like to give it a try too." "Everyone?" Fatty Shu stepped forward, his face showing a resolute expression. "Uncle Yu," he looked at Uncle Yu, "could you give me this opportunity?" He looked at Yang Xinxin again. "Ms. Yang, please trust me this once, okay?" The laziness and evasiveness of the past were gone from Fatty Shu's eyes. Instead, they shone brightly. That was the light of someone yearning to prove themselves. Uncle Yu noticed that his fist, which was placed beside him, was trembling slightly. Uncle Yu looked at Fatty Shu. Yang Xinshin and the others also looked at him, and even Flower slightly opened her eyes to size up this guy. Yang Xinshin said calmly, "You've only just broken through the domain of Ipsilon. Don't you know how dangerous it is to rush into battle?" Fatty Shu lowered his eyelids, took a deep breath, and then said to Yang Xinshin, and also to everyone else, "Actually, I'm very strong right now. Don't forget what the boss always said. Ice and snow-type mutants are born to be the darlings of this world. I am different now than I was before. I really want this opportunity. Please." As he spoke, Fatty Shu bowed deeply to everyone at a 90-degree angle. He closed his eyes tightly, afraid of hearing a sound of rejection. He thought to himself, "I've been a failure my whole life. I'm not handsome, I'm not smart enough, and I've never been popular with girls. When I finally meet a pretty girl, I think I've found true love, but I either get scammed or she turns out to be a sissy." Even so, the boss never gave up on me. He even used the priceless spirit of the ritual on me. I can't be useless anymore. I can't just let the team down without feeling guilty. After a long while, Yang Xinshin's cool voice came from above him. "Fine, then go and give it a try."
Yes!
Fatty Shu felt as if he had been granted a pardon. He happily raised his head, his palms already covered in sweat. "Thank you, I won't let you down." Yang Xinshin looked at him and said, "There's no need to feel guilty. After all, it's just a friendly spar. As your first real battle after your promotion, it's very meaningful." "Yes?" Fatty Shu was visibly excited, but Uncle Yu smiled faintly and didn't try to compete with him for the opportunity. Yang Xinshin reconnected with Lancelot and stated her request. Lancelot readily agreed. After all, in his view, the Knights of the Round Table were all battle-hardened and no less than anyone else. A broad smile played on his lips, and he felt exhilarated at the impending battle. "It's settled. 3 of us will fight. I'm definitely going, but there are 2 spots left. Who should go?" The young man, with short chestnut hair, a youthful face, and a tall, robust build, said calmly, "I'll do it. Knights of the Round Table, Holy Knight, Percival." Another bald, bearded man scratched his head and said, "Count me in. Gawain, the Sun Knight." The participating players on both sides have been determined, and their opponents have been assigned according to their respective superpower indices. Surprisingly, Fatty Shu's superpower index has now reached a staggering 100 points. This was completely unexpected by everyone. Upon closer inspection, it makes perfect sense. Yang Xinshin said calmly, "Zhang Yi has given him too many resources. Moreover, as an ice and snow type of mutant, after crossing the threshold of life, he may undergo a second evolution. Epsilon is a threshold, a place of strict hierarchy, where lower-ranking mutants are completely crushed, because at this level, the level of life will leap forward. Correspondingly, when this limit is broken, the body's potential will be greatly stimulated." Lu Karan said with some surprise, "We really underestimated him." Uncle Yu crossed his arms and watched as Fatty Shu stepped into the battlefield. He has been working very hard to improve over the past 2 years. He never misses a single training session with the Shadow Squad, and he often asks me for extra training. He shrugged. "It's just that, firstly, he was too weak before, and secondly, you wouldn't have paid attention to him, so you have a stereotype." "Uncle?" You watched Fatty Shu's retreating figure. Fatty Shu isn't actually that fat anymore. His face is just a bit rounder. His shoulders are broader than before, his physique is more imposing, and he doesn't pant as much when he walks. Uncle Yu's eyes were full of satisfaction. "Chunlei, you've done a great job. Let everyone see your efforts." As agreed by both sides, each side sent out 3 members to fight. Liang Yue's opponent is Lancelot, the Judgment Knight. Flower's opponent is the Holy Knight Percival. Fatty Shu's opponent is Gawain, the Sun Knight. The 3 battlefields are located outside the main battlefield of Zhang Yi and King Aurther, on 3 secondary battlefields above the endless icy ocean. When Lancelot saw Liang Yue, a look of grief and indignation flashed in his eyes. He still remembered when he first met Liang Yue and the others. At that time, even Zhang Yi struggled to fight him. At that time, Liang Yue was not worthy of even a second glance from him. However, in less than 2 years, this guy was able to stand on the opposite side. Is this God's punishment for me? Lancelot looked up at the sky, and scenes from his life flashed before his eyes. Born into an earl's family, I was a genius, 1 in a million, from birth. After the apocalypse, I quickly awakened my supernatural abilities and was hailed as a genius rarely seen in the world. Breaking through to the Epsilon realm was also without any bottlenecks. But then, ever since I met that monster Pandoragon, my life has completely changed. In the end, I have to watch the 2 people who humiliated me fight here, while I have to stay here and play games with a lackey. He lowered his gaze, and a murderous intent emanated from his eyes. Fine, I'll finish you off here quickly. If I can't deal with chaos, I can at least teach his underlings a lesson and vent my anger. Anyway, his sword was drawn with a metallic scraping sound. I'll leave you with just enough breath, right? Liang Yue sensed Lancelot's murderous intent. She didn't say a word, but simply took out a Han-style 8-sided sword from the weapon case on her back. If the opponent uses a sword, then she will use a sword too. The battlefield between the two was an island reef, only a little over 100 meters long and extremely small in area. But for the 2 swordsmen, it couldn't be better. In close combat, the slightest difference could determine victory or defeat. Liang Yue held the dragon's cry in her left hand and held her right hand loosely, standing quietly in place. The 8-sided sword is not a knife. It takes an unorthodox approach, focusing on assassination and provocation rather than large-scale, open clashes. It is used in a completely different way than the opponent's knight's 2-handed sword. In a battle between experts, the one who strikes first is more likely to reveal a weakness. Liang Yue calmed her breathing. In just a moment, her whole world fell completely silent. The unity of man and nature, a state of selflessness. Forget yourself, forget your enemy, have no fear in your heart, and your hands will not tremble, your eyes will not be confused, and your ears will not ring. In this state, the body's potential can be fully realized. Zhang Yi once said that Liang Yue's superpower index didn't seem high, but she possessed the ability to surpass those with higher superpower indices and instantly defeat others, because her body had already been developed to its fullest potential. Lancelot didn't care about all that. The knight's charge stemmed from an indomitable and powerful fighting spirit. He raised his great sword high with his right hand, and a protective shield with a cross pattern appeared in his left hand. But the cross mark was slashed diagonally by something. Hell Knight, fallen to the underworld. Let my blood stain the banner of rebellious heaven. Fallen heaven's ember flame. Black flame shot into the sky, and the 666 sync symbol on his face twisted eerily, as if it were alive. The black, ghostly flames completely enveloped him, darkening the sky. The black flames wrapped around his body like armor. With sword and shield in hand, he stared at Liang Yue before him, and suddenly charged straight at her. In an instant, he became a burning black line in the void, rushing to Liang Yue's front. Then, his right hand swung down with the greatsword. Clang! Liang Yue moved, but I didn't see clearly how she moved or how the sword came out of its sheath. But when she flicked her wrist and swung the longsword, it rang out with a crisp, melodious sound, like a dragon's roar. A tremendous force was transmitted to Lancelot's arm, causing his body to suddenly stagger back 100 steps, his body swaying violently. Liang Yue forced him back with a single sword strike, the sword pointing diagonally at the ground, while Liang Yue's gaze towards him was now completely empty. However, this is not the end of the contest, but merely the beginning. Liang Yue arrived like a gust of wind, gentle and swift. Her figure was as light and fast as a willow catkin in the wind. The 8-sided sword seemed to float over and pierced Lancelot's body. It was so fast that it was almost impossible to dodge, yet it seemed to have no lethality whatsoever. This effortless swordsmanship caused Lancelot's expression to change, and he hurriedly raised his sword to defend himself. After the 8-sided sword touched his heavy sword, it slithered up like a snake clinging to a willow tree, not forcibly clashing with him, but instead crawling up his shoulder along the sword. A cold, sticky feeling gave Lancelot goosebumps. In an era dominated by firearms, no one knew what the concept of a martial arts master truly meant. Choosing to engage Liang Yue in close combat was Lancelot's biggest mistake. The sword tip, like a bamboo viper, pierced towards his shoulder. One strike would completely cripple his right arm. Lancelot's pupils contracted sharply, and suddenly, the power of the fallen flame erupted at full force. The terrifying black flames erupting from his body made Liang Yue sense the danger. But she remained completely calm and swiftly disappeared into the distance. Liang Yue's superpower index is only 1 point, while Lancelot's is more than 1 point. It would be unwise to directly confront him with superpowers. However, her superb martial arts skills can make up for this huge gap. After stopping in the distance, Liang Yue did not pause at all and immediately began running quickly around Lancelot. The footwork of Bagua Yu Shen Zhang, 8 trigrams, swimming body palm. The most insidious aspect of this footwork is that it involves circling around the enemy, keeping them busy and causing them to become dizzy and nervous, which in turn creates openings in their defenses. Simply put, it's a very effective tactic for experts to outmaneuver novices. Liang Yue ran quickly, while simultaneously raising and slashing with the tip of her sword, unleashing streams of black sword energy that crashed towards Lancelot like semi-transparent curtains of the sky. Lancelot had no idea of Liang Yu's strength because he didn't take Liang Yu seriously. But Liang Yu knew his abilities. After each battle, Zhang Yi and his team would share information with each other. This stems from Zhang Yi's belief. For the mutants, intelligence is the most precious thing. Whoever controls the intelligence on the battlefield controls the initiative. Liang Yue's sword attack did not falter in the slightest, and this kind of attack was not difficult for Lancelot to deal with. He raised his left hand to protect the shield, which was only the size of his arm, but was burning with flames, and produced a huge wall of supernatural energy shield. All of these sword energy attacks were absorbed. Liang Yue's attacks continued relentlessly, showing no sign of stopping for a moment. Her circle is getting smaller and smaller, so she is circling faster and faster. During a lull in the attack, she pulled a weapon that gleamed with a faint, cold light from the pocket at her waist. Aiming at Lancelot, he hurled him away simultaneously with the sword strike. Lancelot blocked Liang Yue's sword. By this time, he had gradually adapted to Liang Yue's attack rhythm and was looking for an opportunity to counterattack. Suddenly, a dazzling silver light flashed before his eyes. Without the slightest hesitation, he slashed out with his sword. But unexpectedly, the silver light, halfway through its journey, bypassed his sword like a serpent, turned in the air at an extremely tricky angle, and stabbed towards his temple. In the blink of an eye, due to a momentary misjudgment, by the time Lancelot reacted, the cold light was already less than half a meter away from his body. He could sense the impending death. Having already used his sword and shield, he could no longer retract his weapons to fight back. He could only desperately twist his body to dodge the attack. Sizzle. The weapon grazed his tactical helmet with a screeching sound, and Lancelot could feel a huge gash being torn in his helmet. With a whoosh, the silver light vanished into the distance. Only then did he vaguely see what it was. A throwing knife, a white throwing knife. It's hard to imagine anyone using such a weapon in the 21st century, but a throwing knife fired from the hand of a black chariot-level enhanced mutant is faster than a bullet fired from any gun in the world. Although the attack failed, Liang Yu had already obtained everything she wanted. Lancelot's posture was unsteady, and even the slightest awkward movement required time to adjust. Otherwise, he would be unable to unleash his full power in battle. And this is what Zhang Yi had mentioned before, the crucial moment when martial arts masters fight for victory in a single move. Harmony between humanity and nature. Liang Yue raised the sword in her hand, and at that moment, the world before Lancelot's eyes suddenly changed. He couldn't see this world. He only felt that the world had suddenly become blurry, and only Liang Yue in front of him was real. But even though his eyes could clearly see her, his consciousness, his body, and his instincts against the enemy all clearly told him that there was no one in front of him at all. This feeling of separation between his mind and body made it impossible for him to lift the sword in his hand. What's the point of raising the sword? to cleave through nothingness? Perhaps it's just an illusion. Liang Yu's sword came to Lancelot's eyes. When the long sword pierced his body, the intense pain brought Lancelot back to consciousness and made him realize that the enemy in front of him was real. Bang! His combat suit, which was burning with the scorching flames of hell, crumbled with a crash, and a longsword pierced his chest, ready to take his life in the next instant. Liang Yi was very confident in her swordsmanship. She could keep the blade half an inch from Lancelot's heart, ensuring she wouldn't take his life. But in that instant, Lancelot had already realized what was happening. He roared angrily, and a terrifying black flame erupted from his bare chest, heading straight for Liang Yui's face. Liang Yui still avoided direct confrontation, quickly dodging the attack. Lancelot used his supernatural power twice. This method is not uncommon for mutants. It involves gathering supernatural energy and then shooting it out from all the acupoints around his body. This is a tactic used in critical situations, but it also harms oneself and is extremely costly. A master craftsman like Liang Yui would never use such crude techniques. Lancelot took a deep breath. He was very uncomfortable with the rhythm of the battlefield falling into the hands of his opponent. He had to admit that he had underestimated his opponent. That kind of superb combat skill is definitely not something an ordinary person can achieve. Finally, he began to seriously face the woman in front of him. Her close combat skills are incredibly formidable. She's practically a weapon master. However, she's only an enhancement type, and her weaknesses lie in releasing her powers and ranged attacks. So, he tensed his leg muscles and then quickly retreated. As long as we keep our distance, we can keep wearing them down from a distance. When Liang Yui saw Lancelot retreat, she knew what he was up to. However, she was not in a hurry at all. Instead, she stepped on the sea and chased after the other party like a serpent. Two dark shadows darted and flashed across the sea. Boom! Black flames shot into the sky, hurtling toward Liang Yu's location. Liang Yui had to stop moving and then swing her sword to break through the attack of these hellish black flames. Once Lancelot had run a sufficient distance, he began his attack plan. Black flames erupted from his sword, harassing Liang Yu from an extremely long distance. He had realized that his opponent was not weak enough for him to defeat quickly. The best way is to use your superior superpowers to continuously launch long-range attacks to wear down the opponent's stamina. Once Liang Yui's stamina and supernatural energy can no longer sustain the fight, or if he makes a mistake during the battle, he can seize the opportunity to end the fight with a single blow. The Knights of the Round Table, the Holy Knight Percival, had his head down, his expression one of confusion. It was clearly agreed that his opponent would be a powerful member of the Chaos Team, a super ferocious beast that wreaked havoc on the battlefield. But why is it that the little tabby cat with black markings on its back and a patch of snow-white fur on its chest is sitting quietly in front of him with its tail curled up? Why? He tilted his head to the side, unable to quite comprehend what was happening before him. Meow ho. Flower opened her mouth wide and cried out. A faint blush immediately appeared on Percival's face, and his eyes narrowed happily. How cute! Kitten, are you lost? Flower opened her squinting eyes a crack. The next moment, a terrifying power surged forth from its body. The terrifying power forced Percival to take several steps back. Flower transformed from an adorable little kitten into a majestic feline behemoth with two pairs of wings on its back. It has a natural king character on its head, and its body is covered with a layer of armor that looks very thin, but is actually extremely tough. This is a skin suit specially designed for it by Lu Karen. It is usually hidden among its fur and will not burst even when it grows bigger. Since Flower already possesses extremely strong combat power, this armor only enhances its defensive capabilities. Whether it's close combat or long-range attacks, Flower is adept at it. It's practically a perfect biological fighting machine. Roar! After growing to its gigantic size, Flower resembled a prehistoric beast, standing on all fours on the sea surface and letting out a furious roar at Percival. Seeing this, Percival couldn't help but sigh. She was so cute just now. However, he looked up at the imposing Flower. You look even more handsome now." A layer of sacred golden light emerged from his body, and his golden battle armor shone even more brilliantly at this moment. In an instant, his body grew taller, but his legs disappeared. Instead, it took on the form of a centaur. He became enormous, as tall as Flower, with the upper body of a human wearing golden armor and the lower body of a giant warhorse. Shark claws popped out from Huahua's paw pout. Without the slightest hesitation, it opened its blood-red maw, and a ball of crimson energy gathered into a sphere, which then suddenly erupted, transforming into a crimson beam that shot towards Percival. Percival made a gesture with both hands, and two golden energies transformed into two curved battle blades in his palms. Facing the crimson superpowered cannon, his expression remained unchanged. He simply slashed down with his sword. The blade of light cleaved the two spaces, carrying immense power, and collided fiercely with the crimson energy cannon. The sea boiled, and a huge crater was blasted out, with millions of tons of seawater shooting into the sky. The seawater quickly flowed back, creating a breathtaking and magnificent sight. At that moment, Flower rushed towards Percival like a gust of wind. Felines are natural hunters, and hunting creatures of similar size is a piece of cake for them. Although it was huge, it was exceptionally agile. Its massive black shadow flickered on the sea like a phantom, and the cat had already reached it. Smash them! Its massive forepaws revealed their cold, sharp claws, and it slashed down fiercely at Percival. Percival was shocked by Flower's speed, and quickly raised his curved swords to block Flower's attack. Clang! Clang! The attack with the claws was blocked by the scimitar. But what awaited Percival was a frenzied, wild clawing attack from Flower. Cats have incredibly sharp dynamic vision, and their claw strikes are fast enough to dazzle the eye. It stood up like a human, now able to look down at the centaur before it. The two enormous claws created after-images because they pounced so fast. Swish! Flower's claws swung forward thousands of times per second, like 10 sharp steel knives slashing. There was no strategy involved. It was purely driven by the hunting instincts of a feline, attacking as if toying with a mouse. This fierce attack was beyond Percival's expectations. He was very good at dealing with people, but this was the first time he had encountered a black chariot-class war beast. It's important to know that Flower has always been Zhang Yi's most trusted confidant. In the entire shelter, if we're talking about who eats the best, Flower is definitely second only to Zhang Yi, because Zhang Yi has poured a lot of resources into it. To put it simply, the centipede farm managed by the frog produces a batch of centipedes every month that are as fat as pigs and have a very high superpower index. These are Flower's little snacks, which she eats like spicy strips, having a few whenever she has a spare moment. 9,000 plus centipedes provide little benefit to an Epsilon-level mutant, but their enormous consumption makes them irresistible. Flower's superpower index has now reached a terrifying level, a power index comparable to Percival's. At times like these, the terrifying nature of felines is fully revealed. Percival wielded short scimitars for horseback combat. He was a master of close-quarters fighting, but how could a human's reaction speed compare to that of a feline?